Hey guys, it's Andy from the Tennessee Repair Guy, working on a 2014 Honda CR-V. Going to change the brakes on it today. First, you're going to go ahead and start by jacking the car up. I know most of you probably don't need to know this, but right there is the jack up point. It's basically so you don't hurt your frame of the car. Anyways, you want to center your jack on it and just make sure you can get the tire off the ground. Oh man, I know most people don't need to see this, but I try to help everybody out. Alright, now that we've got the tire off the ground, we need to go ahead and take the lugs off of the tire. All or most Hondas are a 19mm socket. So just go ahead and get those pulled off, and then we get the tire off. You may have to hit the tire on the top and the bottom. Hit it on the rubber with your hands, just kind of jerk it back and forth. That way you can get the tire off. Sometimes it gets stuck on there because it's been a while to be on there. As you can see here, I'm just kind of trying to get it off. Once we get it off, as you can see there, I've got plenty of brake pads left, but I went ahead and bought brake pads, so we're gonna go ahead and change them. No big deal. You're going to need a 12mm wrench here on the back to pull off your caliper. Just kind of swing that out of the way. You can use zip ties to hold it up, or if you don't plan on doing anything crazy with it, just take it off. You've got these two springs here on your brake pads, so they keep the brake pads from riding on the rotor. Make sure you take those off and then put them back on before you put your caliper on. If not, you'll have to take everything back off and do it all over again. And we're just going to go ahead and reinstall the new brake pads. Actually, we need to decompress the cylinder on the caliper. I've got a special tool for that. You can actually use a C-clamp. Make sure that little tab there on the back of that brake pad I was pointing at is facing on the back side of the rotor. You don't want it to go on the front because you're not going to be able to put it back together. Anyways, not a whole lot going on here. See your piston there? You have to push that back in. Like I said, always use an old brake pad. You don't want to use a new brake pad, and you don't want to put anything directly on your piston, or that will scar it, and you don't want to do that. And there I am putting the springs back in place. It's going to keep the brake pads from riding the caliper. It'll help it with a longer life also. So as you can see, I got the old brake pad here, and I've got my special tool, and all that does is it just applies pressure to one side of the caliper and helps push in the brake pad. And you can use a wrench, or I've got an impact there. I just use it. I just run it all the way down till the brake pad is flush, and just back it out. We're gonna put it on. There's not a whole lot to it. You can do this to all four calipers on this car. It's very simple. On her car, I just did the front because your front brake pads wear out faster than your rear ones. Appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. If you don't like what you see, tell me about it. Tell me why you don't like it. I want to know. I just want some feedback. But need to go ahead and tighten these back down. And before you go to move your car, after you do that, make sure you get back inside your car and pump the brakes a few times before you try to move it. I've already got a video on how to bleed the brake pads using this bleeder I'm using, so if you want to check out my videos, you can find that on how to operate this bleeder. Make sure you get all of your lug nuts on. Don't tighten them all the way down with the car in the air. You need to set it back down in the air and tighten it back up with a torque wrench. I believe it's 90 foot-pounds of torque. You want to tighten these two. You never want to do it in like the lug nut next to it, you always want to go across from it. Anything with a circle, you always want to make sure you're working across from the bolt, not next to the one. As you can see my bolt pattern here, putting it back on. It'll tighten everything back up. The torque wrench is just to make sure you don't over tighten the lugs. Make sure you actually put enough